on the brain as the Ravens travel to Cleveland this week. Luke Jones will be on the scene on the backfields in Owings Mills all week long, of course, on our social media as well as our WNST text service, brought to you by Coons Ford at Security Boulevard. We have Eric Weddle joining us next week at Adams Jeep in Aberdeen on Tuesday night, swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry and getting to know him a little bit. And, of course, the Orioles going to play baseball all week at first in Fenway, then at Camden Yards this weekend, hosting the Tampa Rays. Lots of things happening, but for this guy, it's college football season. Week 2 was a little bit of a stinkerooski, playing football in the middle of a racetrack and all that good stuff, but week 3 picks it up with some big games on the slate. He is the owner and operator of NationalChamps.net as well as the Queen City Football Foundation out in Western Maryland. He's one of our defending champions and longtime visitors. We welcome Todd Helmick back onto the program from NationalChamps.net. Helmick, what's going on, man? Happy college football, as you like to say, the most wonderful time of the year, right?
It's TGIF, thank God it's football. Weather's been great. It's football weather. Smells like the inside of a sweaty football helmet. Gotta love it.
Well, last week kind of stunk, right? I mean, I watched that Virginia Tech game against Tennessee, and I know what they were trying to do there. What did you think of that experiment? I mean, you're one of those guys that lives out in a country part of the world where they love the left turns and running around the track and all that. I thought it was a little weird. It felt like a little bit of a novelty game.
I would have liked to have been there. It's kind of like watching the Pittsburgh Penguins play hockey in a baseball stadium outdoors. It's just a different feel.
And everybody has a bad seat.
That's true. I've never been to Bristol. Largest crowd to ever see a college football game. That was part of the marketing that went behind it. And, of course, Bristol, Tennessee, gosh, that's halfway between Blacksburg and Knoxville. So the place got filled up. And honestly, college football today, you just have to ask Coach Harbaugh at Michigan, it's about new things, new trends, whether it's the Oregon Duck uniforms or whether it's making your football field turf blue or whether it's Maryland putting flags on the helmet, just new, ingenuitive things, anything that might give you a recruiting edge or an edge in some way, fashion, or form. But in terms of the game, I'm still not on board with Tennessee being a top SEC East candidate just yet. We thought so in the preseason with so much talent and experience coming back. This was the year Tennessee might get over that SEC hump finally, but Virginia Tech didn't help them out. 9 turnovers for the Hokies in 2 games, and that's more than most teams commit all season. New head coach Justin Fuente at Virginia Tech can't be happy with that. The Hokies are not going to win too many games turning the ball over 9 times or 4.5 times a game.
From a local perspective, things have been quiet for the Terps. They played a Friday night game last week. They're staying down in Florida this week and playing another game. Some thoughts about where the Terps are and getting ready for, this hammer that's going to come when this Big Ten schedule comes.
Well, we said in the preseason Maryland had to win its first 3 games if they wanted to make sure they were 6 wins and bowl eligible come the holidays, and they're on their way to doing that. Now, we knew Howard was bad, their first opponent. I mean, Howard won 1 football game last year and was outscored 610-20, something like that. That wasn't the exact score, but it was that bad. And then Florida International, a disappointing team these days, a far cry from what they were maybe 4 years ago when Mario Cristobal was down there running the show. So, in UCF, the opponent coming up gets destroyed up in Ann Arbor this week. They don't look that great. No challenges for Maryland. But in the process, you see a quarterback developing in Perry Hills, the senior, and that's what the Terps sorely need. He's been very efficient running, very efficient throwing, but you don't know where he stands against better and bigger teams, where last year Maryland set a FBS record for amount of interceptions in a season. So you just don't know where to gauge them. But I will say this about the Terps. They do look efficient, albeit again against lesser competition. The penalties are going. They're moving the ball, playing good defense. They're hitting on all cylinders. You hope that it's a sign of some things to come when the Big Ten does roll around.
Were you a fan of the Durkin hiring in general?
I was, actually, because the Terps were looking for that, gosh, we hear this term all the time, young, energetic approach to things, because that seems to do well with the young kids, i.e. recruiting. And boom, right off the bat, this guy's making probably bigger splashes in the recruiting world since he's been there that I've seen from Maryland in maybe 2 or 3 decades. And so you see that happening. You see his enthusiasm. You knew he was a great defensive coordinator. Look what he did with Michigan's defense under Harbaugh. I thought it was a great hire. But the only thing I don't like to hear from the Maryland higher-ups and administrations is, the coach is responsible for putting fannies in the seats. No, he's not. That's your job. Maryland's had that problem for 100 years, putting fannies in the seats.
The Orioles have that problem this week, too. I'm writing about it at WNST.net.
Okay.
So, fannies in the seats is a problem for everyone. I mean, everyone's trying to, attract attention, engage a fan base, and all of these games are on HD. I mean, I'm at nationalchamps.net on the back page right now, Todd. I see your television listings. I don't have to go to any football game this week to watch every football game, right?
No, it doesn't. And I don't know how much internet television you watch, but that's changing television. You give it another 10 years, Nestor, everything's going to be, cable's done. It's ancient history. Get yourself an Amazon Fire Stick, a PlayStation, or a Netflix and watch every game in HD. I can get the Pac-12 network games now because of internet TV. In the last 2-3 years, the Pac-12 network not picked up by DirecTV or your cable system. They didn't even have an internet feed for it, but now I get it. So, yeah, that's changing the game. You're absolutely right. You don't have to leave to watch any college game, not even your Prairie View A&M versus, Texas Tech. It's on television now.
Well, last week I was flipping around. I mean, I was literally, my wife was out of town. It was Saturday. I wasn't seeing Springsteen on Saturday night, so it was kind of an off day. Waiting for the Orioles to get started. It was a blowout game, and the games were just awful. But God, they were everywhere. I mean, I had 40 different games just on my cable that I could have watched any bad matchup there was. Now this week, things start to heat up a little bit, right? I mean, especially in the SEC, huge matchups going on. I mean, Oregon's playing Nebraska this week, Alabama, Ole Miss, Pitt and Oklahoma State, and I know they were disappointing last week as well. You got night games, SEC, Auburn, and A&M. Just a nice slate this week of games.
You forgot the biggest game at all. There's only one matchup that involves 2 top 10 teams, and that's Florida State at Louisville. And in fact, the New York Times has called this Louisville's biggest football game in the history of the school. So you got number 2 Florida State, number 10 Louisville.
Full disclosure, you are a Seminole. Just make sure you point that out, right?
Well, it's the only game with 2 top 10 teams going at it.
I know, that's true.
They stuck it at 12 noon, so much for the ACC. But
I think Michigan State, Notre Dame will be interesting at least. I mean, there's some other games out there that are pretty good. Ohio State, Oklahoma's
it's a big weekend.
Yeah.
In fact, they tried to promote week 1. A couple weeks ago, they tried to promote that as the greatest weekend in college football history. I venture to say this week coming up is bigger in terms of big time matchups.
Well, you're going to have a lot of teams taking on losses that we're not expecting them to take on. LSU. National championship host and all that stuff, and it kind of fizzles away. Now they get a home game against Mississippi State. They got to start to turn it back on, right?
Yeah, and there's Mississippi State loses the opening weekend against South Alabama at home. That's not supposed to happen. The SEC was taking some hammering after that week 1 with all the losses they had to take on. We see Georgia beating Nicholls State, all these FCS schools in the last minute of the game. But LSU, it's whether it was last week or 5 years ago, Les Miles can't develop quarterbacks. They got a quarterback issue going on down there. Leonard Fournette, the Heisman candidate, sat out with a bum ankle. He should be back this week. But it's still Mississippi State, LSU. It's a lot of defense, a lot of SEC hard-nosed football. That's a good matchup.
Ohio State and Oklahoma. That's also an interesting, you don't see that one every day.
No, you don't. That's a great non-conference matchup. And you don't get that a lot, although Oklahoma did play Texas Oklahoma played Houston 2 weeks ago, and Houston ended up beating them. Knocked Oklahoma right out of the top 4 in the playoff discussion. Oklahoma loses this one, and man, the Big 12 is smarting because every team in the Big 12 has a loss except for West Virginia and Baylor, but neither of them are favored to compete for a playoff position. So the Big 12 kind of out of the picture after just 2 weeks of football. Ohio State, the youngest team in college football out of 132 teams. You weren't sure what to make out of them. All of a sudden, they're beating Bowling Green 77-10. They're pasting another opponent last weekend, and J.T. Barrett, the quarterback, now that the other guy bolted for the NFL, he doesn't have to share time. He's a top front-running Heisman candidate all of a sudden. Now, Ohio State's got great things going. At Ohio State, Michigan, they're just pasting teams right now. Again, albeit lesser opponents, but they both look like they're headed for a massive showdown that last game of the year.
He is Todd Helmick from NationalChamps.net. He has all the TV listings on one click. It's a great page, a great resource. We've used it for years here at WNST.net. I highly encourage you to check out NationalChamps.net. Now, you said you're getting the Pac-12 games now. Obviously, ABC is going to have the national game on Saturday night with USC and Stanford. USC and Stanford's supposed to stand for something. Boy, USC, the whole L.A. thing, and I know they're playing their own NFL football there now, kicking off on Monday night as well. But UCLA and USC, it's kind of hard times going on there, right?
I don't know if you want to make it hard times just yet. Yes, UCLA loses at Texas A&M in week 1, nothing to be ashamed about. USC losing to Alabama on a neutral field, nothing to be ashamed about. But it was the fashion in which USC got pounded 52-6. I mean, USC looked horrible in that game. But you know what? They turned it around last week and looked really good at home, getting a decisive victory. And so you don't know what to make of USC right now. But I'm not ready to hang those two L.A. schools out to dry just yet. It's too early to tell. It's just Alabama's going to make a lot of teams look bad. I got a sneaky suspicion.
Well, and I guess the other part of that is Stanford's probably going to make a lot of teams look bad. It better not be USC on Saturday night.
Well, you know, Stanford's a great team to watch. They lost a lot of people, but they didn't lose Christian McCaffrey, the running back. And they call him the Swiss Army knife because he's got 50 different things he's good at, you know. And that's a great they did open up with Kansas State on a Thursday night opening weekend, and I didn't get a chance to really watch much of that game. So being a Heisman voter, I glue into when someone like McCaffrey plays a big opponent like USC. But the Pac-12 right now, I don't think Oregon, you know, they went to the playoff national championship game 2 seasons ago. But since then, and we all know about Coach Kelly moving to the NFL, but this new coach that stepped in for him hasn't shown me that Oregon's capable of being another national championship opponent.
Now they're going to Lincoln, Nebraska, where I'm hoping to go in about 8 weeks before that Dallas game. I'm still waiting on that Maryland-Nebraska game time, by the way. I know I'll get it like 5 days before. But Oregon, Nebraska, another, these early season matchups across conferences, they're better than playing Florida International or Howard or whatever the Terps are doing. These are interesting games that have big stakes.
Yeah, there's big national championship ramifications in all these games, no question about it. And you're going to get that the first couple of weeks because after, about week 3, you started your conference play, and that's the end of those non-conference matchups, usually, most of the time. I mean, you still get your Florida States at the end of the year, and Clemson, South Carolina, sometimes those late ones. But the SEC, I've hammered the SEC. Everyone says how tough and what a grindstone it is, and it rightfully so. The regular season conference opponents just brutal slate. Every week somebody can beat you, but their non-conference schedule is usually pitiful. I mean, we did get an Alabama-USC matchup and Ole Miss played Florida State, but other than that, you're seeing these nickel states and Jacksonville states, and it's not so in other conferences. But I can't blame the SEC because, when your in-conference schedule is so brutal, it's too hard to load up with non-conference teams as well.
He is Todd Helmick from NationalChamps.net. Tell me what you're doing with that Queen City Foundation out there in Western Maryland.
It is a nonprofit organization and helps high school football players get financial assistance into college. 98% of the players we work with are Division II level kids, which there's still money and scholarships to be made there. It generally tends to be more about academics at the D2 and Division II levels, but every now and again, we're putting kids at the higher level. Ty Johnson, I keep praising his name with you, the starting running back for the Maryland Terrapins. Now, they do have about 4 of them that share carries, but he is the starting running back, a true sophomore out of Cumberland that went through our program. And, hey, if there's any Towson or coaches out there listening, man, I've got about 3 more kids that are uncommitted right now that would start for your program. And so that's the things we do, and we don't charge the kids. That's the important part. It's all nonprofit.
Nice work, Todd. Well, I appreciate it. I know it's your time of the year, and you're all geeked up about the TV schedule. And, man, how do you watch all? You got 3 games like Oregon, Nebraska, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Pitt, Oklahoma State, all going at the same time. I mean, you have like a TV wall there. What are you doing?
Well, I had a 3 TV set up in the living room, but honest to goodness, it's complicated to watch 3 games.
I can't do it. Red Zone's okay with me, but I can't. I mean, I've sat in sports bars. You can only really watch one game. You can keep an eye on several, but then you sort of miss all of it. I mean, the weeks where the Ravens have like a bye or they're playing Monday night, sometimes I will on purpose go to a sports bar and try to sit somewhere and watch all the 1 o'clock games. It winds up frustrating me, to be really honest. I wind up not seeing anything,
I agree. I actually removed one of the TVs and kept it at 2. Now I can focus. I like to focus on the one game, and then if a big play or a big 4th down is happening on the right side TV, I'll glance over and check that play out. But I like to focus on one game to learn what I need to learn and love what I need to love. But I got to throw in another curveball. Did you see the end of the Oklahoma State Central Michigan game? Are you aware of that scenario?
I saw it on SportsCenter on Sunday morning briefly, yes. Amidst baseball highlights and getting ready for an NFL game and picking my wife up at the airport.
Let me explain real quick to listeners that may not have seen this yet, but Oklahoma State, who's in the top 25, they're at home. They're up by 3 points with 4 seconds left, and they have the ball at the other team's 40-yard line. All they got to do is take a knee, but make sure you run 4 seconds off. But Oklahoma State decides to drop back and just heave a pass way high up in the air to drain out the clock. Problem is they didn't send the receiver out, and the quarterback wasn't out of the pocket. Intentional grounding. No problem. That was 4th down. That is loss of down. Central Michigan gets 1 snap with 0 time, an untimed snap from their own 40. They throw the Hail Mary. The guy catches it for Central Michigan at the 20-yard line, flicks it up in the air. A guy running sideways catches it and runs it in the other 20 yards. It's like the Hail Mary hook and ladder combination. Central Michigan wins, but the key of it all was the referee screwed up. They never should have gotten the untimed down because the rule book states that on an offensive penalty, when it is a loss of down, there is no untimed snap allowed after that. The refs didn't know that and let that 1 snap happen. So complete craziness, and Central Michigan beats a ranked opponent for the first time since 1991.
Because the officials get it wrong. I mean, that's not going to sit well. That doesn't sit well in Stillwater, does it?
It was in Stillwater, and Boone Pickens has deep pockets. So you got to wonder, the stadium's named after Boone Pickens, the oil tycoon. You wonder his money didn't go a long way there in helping his team out.
We'll see how Pitt does on Saturday afternoon. Todd, always great having you on, man. Keep the faith. We'll be watching some football on Saturday.
Hey, thanks for having me. Enjoy talking football.
Always a pleasure. Todd Helmick joining us here from nationalchamps.net. You get all the TV listings out there, as well as some great insights. And, of course, Maryland down in Florida this weekend, taking on UCF. And that game is on the CBS Sports Network. 7 o'clock kick as the sun sets in Central Florida on Saturday night. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. Appreciate our friends at BuyAToyota.com for sponsoring all the things that we do. Our morning newspaper reaches you at 7 a.m. every morning. It's brought to you by Planet Fitness, and PlanetFitness.com comes right to your email inbox. It's one of our best services with all the headlines, all the box scores, all the standings, all the news, all the blogs. I'm writing about Orioles' attendance woes this week as they return home on Thursday night against Tampa. We're monitoring all things Orioles. We're monitoring all things Ravens, getting ready for this Cleveland game out on our social media at WNST.net. Of course, Luke on the backfields as well. You can always email me, nasty@WNST.net, but I'm on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. We stream live on Facebook Live as well as on our YouTube WNST channel. If there's any breaking news this week, that'll happen first on the WNST Tech Service. That is brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will have you Thursday, driving you home, getting you ready for Thursday night football as well as Orioles action. That is the SSV on WNST, heard 3 until 5 every Thursday. We've got Eric Weddle joining us next Tuesday at Adams Jeep in Aberdeen, swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry. It is our first show, and Eric's a great, great guy. I can't wait to spend spent some time getting to know him, talk to him a little bit. Very, very passionate guy, very well-spoken guy, very polite. And I know the fans up in Hartford County are going to dig Eric Weddle. I dig him as well. We dig him because he's going to do this event for us. We're going to get him swabbed up on the bone marrow registry to save some lives for There Goes My Hero. So save next Tuesday for that. Whew, we are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.